Dave Hakstol, come on down. Now I know last time we had made a video about this player, it was just a few days ago, and I even said in that video, we're gonna make one more video talking about the other guy, and we would make a video comparing the two and their starts and everything, and we wouldn't want to focus on this individual player again, but I feel like we kinda have to. Let's go over to Seattle and let's talk about Shane Wright once more. Because when it comes to the way his NHL career has started, man, has it been kind of demoralizing seeing what happened from the preseason up until now. Shane Wright, as most people know, was supposed to be the first overall pick. He had been touted as being first overall caliber in 2022 for years. Literally since the guy was 16 years old, he had been called the next first overall pick behind the Lafrenières and the Hugheses and the Dahlins and the Matthewses. This was supposed to be your guy. But he didn't end up going first overall. In a season where he put up 90-something points in 60 games played, which in the eyes of some hockey fans and analysts was kind of a down year, he ended up going fourth overall as a result, slipping 3 spots past his projected first overall ranking. That's all fine and dandy, and eventually we saw him suit up for the Kraken in the preseason, where, as I noted in the several Canucks vs. Kraken preseason game videos, he looked pretty good. Shane Wright showed off a maturity that allowed him to actually play the game at the NHL pace and make some really incredible dangles too. There were a few rushes and dangles that he was able to pull off against Vancouver that made him look like the superstar to be that he was projected to being, and while he wasn't Connor McDavid going out there and scoring a point per game, he definitely looked like he belonged at the National Hockey League level. This is why, if you go over to Shane Wright's game log of the regular season, not the preseason anymore, but the full 82, things look a lot more bleak than they did a few weeks ago. This is because, in 4 Seattle Kraken games played so far, Shane Wright has only played 2 games, and in those 2 games, he's only had 6 minutes of ice time in both of those contests. Against the Anaheim Ducks, he had 6:14 played, and against the Carolina Hurricanes, he had 6:50, so he's averaging 5:32 of ice time per game. Here's a tweet made by Fridge the Goalie on Twitter, asking the question, hey, Seattle Kraken, what's going on with Shane Wright? What is the holdup in playing him meaningful minutes? He had 11 shifts in the 5-4 overtime loss against Anaheim, 6:14 time on ice, and he had 5 shifts of 3:38 time on ice through 2.5 periods against Carolina. This is Seattle's 4th game and Wright's 2nd. Is there something that awful about Wright, that 3 teams willingly passed on him and the team that did draft him refuses to play him now? He didn't seem that bad when I saw him playing in Kingston. He seemed outwardly like a great kid, fantastic two-way skill, and I'm very confused. Seattle has played 235 minutes of hockey, Wright has been dressed for 115 of that, and he's only played 16 shifts for 952 total time on ice. A measly 8.7% of his dress time has been spent on the ice. For comparison, Slafkovsky has played 17.2% of his D time on ice, nearly double that of Wright thus far. This comment was screenshotted and posted onto the Seattle Kraken subreddit, where I wanted to go out there and take a look at some Kraken fan perspectives as to why this is going on. Seattle Kraken, very nice username, comments, look at Lafrenière with the Rangers. It's the old way of thinking where you need to earn your minutes. Not every team or coach does it though. In my opinion, send Wright back to the OHL for this year, fire Hakstol next year after tanking this one, actually develop and play the young players next year, and do it with a real coach. The Fridge Turt then replies, now that Lafrenière is getting more time on ice and unsheltered minutes, he's rounding out into more of the player he was supposed to be. Hopefully that will happen with Wright. The Glass Fields also comments on this thread, he is young and needs time down to develop. They're hurting him by keeping him up and playing him 6 minutes a game. He'll be fine, but send him down to get playing time. Let's go over onto another subreddit over here. This is the Philadelphia Flyers subreddit, and the reason we're going over onto Philly is because Mysterious Goal 2197 had a post that had a very good question. Hey, I'm a Kraken fan. How bad could Dave Hakstol stunt Beniers and Wright's development? Now, Beniers is the other rookie on Seattle. He's been doing pretty alright. Shane Wright, on the other hand, not doing all too well when it comes to deployment. This is the first comment from Legionnaire11. I wanted to read this out in full because I really like this comment and I do think it provides some good insight. I've watched all of Seattle's games so far this season, and I followed their offseason as well as Wright's draft season in Kingston pretty close. That doesn't make me an expert at all, so don't take this opinion as gospel. Beniers is already the real deal, and he's usually the best player on the ice for the Kraken, so I don't think there's any worry over there. Wright, however, is the question mark. I think he's going to be a solid NHL player, a two-way second liner at minimum. And if these two are in Seattle for a long time together, that's really all they need from Wright with Beniers carrying the load. In his one game and 6 minutes of action so far, I felt like Wright kept up. He generally had good positioning, and he made a solid play to strip the puck in the corner on the forecheck and flip it to the front of the net. He didn't get pushed around, he wasn't burned by the speed, and he didn't make any glaring errors. So there's good reason to feel like he's going to be okay no matter what. Offensively, that's really what everyone will be wondering about, and there's not really a good answer yet. It's the one area he'd probably benefit the most from by going back to the OHL, but then again, Kingston is in a pretty bad situation itself, and I think that also played a factor in Francis' statement about keeping Wright up all season. Dave Hakstol is an obvious weakness for the team. He often looks lost for words on the bench with a blank stare. I think this easing in of Wright is okay for the short term, and I don't have a problem with them limiting his games played to around 50 this season and doing a lot of film study and conditioning. But I would really like him to be in the 11 or 12 minute range rather than sub 10. Tonight will be a big tell on how Hax is going to use him. Which, spoiler alert, was the Carolina game, and it was the other 6-minute game that he had. So really, Wright feels like he will go about as well as the Kraken go. Regardless of the coach, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Wright end up as a 60-point two-way second-line center who could flirt with 80 when everything goes right. Probably for a lot of fans, that would be a disappointment after the hype. That kind of player is usually a project, and I think he'd be better off if Hakstol isn't the coach there long-term. I don't know if I really said anything worthwhile and all that. It's kind of too soon to tell, really. Now, I liked that comment a lot because it kind of goes over everything that has gone down with Hakstol and how well Wright has been playing and if he deserves to be played 6 minutes a night, which I definitely don't think is the case. He's a lot better than that of a fourth-line tweener kind of role player that gets only 6 to 8 minutes of time on ice of action per game. But I do definitely acknowledge that the idea of keeping him around in the NHL isn't a bad one because, as we kind of said, he has nothing else to learn in Kingston and the OHL. Plus the fact that, contextually speaking, it's probably not the best place to be right now in Kingston if you wanted to take your 4th overall guy and develop him more properly than if he would have been in the NHL instead. It's definitely a dichotomy here, and it's one that I don't want to go out there and blame 100% on the coach, but it's really difficult to not do that, you know? Like, it's so easy for me to go out there and say, yeah, no, it's Dave Hakstol. He's ruining the guy's development. You take a look at some other players that the Philadelphia Flyers had in their system when Hakstol was the coach, and it becomes a little easier to say, okay, maybe there is a little bit of opportunity for this to happen here with Wright. I mean, with Beniers, it's not likely going to be that because Beniers is already the best player on the team, or one of at least, and that guy is already proven to have been so effective that there's no real reason for him to be limited at all. As for Wright, though, he needs that extra boost, that extra confidence from his coach so that he knows that he's actually able to do what it is that he's able to do at the NHL level, where his coach is like, yeah, okay, just go out there, play your game. It doesn't matter if you give the puck away or lose out on a scoring chance, you shoot it wide or whatever, because we're going to play you still. Like, we're not going to keep you held down to 6 minutes of time on ice per game, especially if you make a mistake or whatever. Like, that's so strange to me. Especially for a team like Seattle that is younger and sort of in a rebuild-ish. I mean, rebuild, that kind of implies that they had been built at all in the first place, which hasn't been the case because they're brand new. Let's just say build. Just build by itself. Yeah, there you go. But either way, talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about the Seattle Kraken and the deployment of Shane Wright so far. We needed to have this conversation, man, because early on in this guy's career, a guy that some people said could have been a potential Calder candidate, he's gone out there and been set up with the absolute worst-case scenario in terms of playing time, opportunity, deployment. We've been waxing poetic about the same kind of things with different players over the years, but with Shane Wright, it's a difficult conversation to digest. So let me know in the comments all your thoughts about this idea over here with the Kraken, Hakstol, whether or not it's time for him to get fired, and how he's developed players in the past. I hope you enjoyed this footage. Trolls 99, and bye.